Hello, Exploring Computer Science, and welcome to our first CSS tutorial lesson. Before we get into what CSS is and how it relates to HTML, I want you guys to go to your REPL.it home screen right here and click New REPL. And this time, I want you to name your REPL your name and CSS1. Because this is our first CSS tutorial lesson. Next week's file will be named CSS2. I already have one with that name, so I'm just going to erase the one and create this one. So hopefully this time it will work. It hasn't been working lately. REPL's been kind of buggy. While we wait for that to load and wait to see if it's going to load, oh, it did load, yay. Let me talk to you a little bit about what CSS and JavaScript are in relation to HTML. In the early days of the internet, the entire internet was in the hypertext macro language. But there were some real problems with HTML, particularly as more and more devices connected to the internet. The biggest problem with HTML was that it relied on the fonts and the color schemes that were saved in the individual person's computers and cell phones and tablets, which means that your computer might have a different hue of the color blue than somebody else's computer. So I might think that my website's really pretty with the light blue, but somebody might load it up on their computer and it might be a dark blue. This became an even bigger problem when more and more companies started to release websites. Blue in Google Chrome is a different color of blue than it is in Internet Explorer. It's a different color of blue than it was in Firefox. And so in the early 2000s, web developers ran into this massive problem because they were making really pretty awesome websites. But when it loaded on other people's browsers, it looked ugly and awful. And this was complicated by the fact that every screen is a different size of pixels. So if I want a picture to be 300 pixels on a 4K 52-inch TV, that's a really tiny little box in the top left corner. But on a cell phone screen, it's the whole screen. It takes up the whole screen. And so there were all these problems with HTML that just couldn't be fixed. So they created a new language called CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets. CSS is its own programming language, very unique to itself, and it is there to provide a template for every internet web browser to grab from, so that in CSS, if you say blue, it is going to be the same color of blue on every single person's screen. CSS also allowed for you to say, I want this picture to take up this percentage of the screen instead of saying this many pixels of the screen, which is a helpful thing. So with that said, let's delete lines 4 and 5 here. You still don't need them, but leave your title. You can change that to your name in CSS if you want. In fact, I'll do that now. And leave this link. This link right here is a key piece of code, because this link right here tells this web page to go look at this file to get its style. REL means relationship style sheet. It defines the relationship of style. Right down here is a JavaScript link. We don't cover JavaScript in this class. I've been working through it with my 8th graders. That's a lot of fun, but we just don't have enough time to cover it. So we're going to delete the JavaScript on line 8. So go ahead and do that real quick. As you're doing that, here is the best way to think of the relationship between HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. HTML is what a website is. HTML is used to define the content of the website. So if I were to ask someone, describe for me Coach Porter, they would explain what he is, right? They would say, well, he's tall, and he has kind of a fun, goofy personality, and he's a basketball player and a basketball coach, and he has 2 kids. All those things would be HTML things if Coach Porter was a website. CSS is how a website looks. If I ask you how Coach Porter looks, that's a different question than who he is. Who he is defines his character and personality. How he looks, you might say, well, he's wearing a jumpsuit today. Or he's wearing slacks today, or his hair is nicely combed, or he looks sad. So if he was a website, that would be CSS code. CSS is how your website looks. And then JavaScript is what it does. JavaScript is a full programming language that runs applications and programs. And so if I have a website and that website is a gaming website, the JavaScript would be the code of the video games. And most tablet games anymore are coded in JavaScript. And so we're not going to get into JavaScript. We're just going to do CSS and HTML. So here's how CSS works. You have a separate style sheet called style.css. REPL is nice. They've already created it right over here for you. And on CSS, you define the styles of the different parts of your website. So let me talk about the parts of a website real quick. Every website is divided into different pieces and different parts. I'm going to click over here to LCA's website and tell you what I mean. So LCA, we have a contact bar up here with two icons in it. That is one part of the website. So in CSS, we would create a class, what's called a class, and we would say top bar. We name that class top bar, and then we'd say the background color of that bar is maroon, and it should always have these two buttons in here. The buttons themselves would probably be in JavaScript, but CSS would still do that. That way, any website that's connected to the style sheet that has in it a top bar will automatically look like this. Now, the content of the bar right here, that is defined in HTML. And so, because this is what it is text telling us to contact LCA and giving us an email address. Then we have our logo. Then we have another menu bar. This is part 2 of the website right here is this menu bar. It's trying to drag and drop. So then I'd have another section in CSS saying menu bar, and any web page linked to the CSS style sheet that has a menu bar in it will look exactly like this. Now, the menus themselves might change. That's all HTML, but the bar will be the same size. It will be in the same position. It will have the same font and all of that, and it will probably even have this. Then we have our title pane. So there at CSS, we'd have a title pane right there. This is the next part. Introduction paragraph. About LCA with all of this stuff. This is another section, all defined in LCA, but the pictures and the text might change page to page. But at least everything will have this background image right here that you can kind of see faded beyond there and be that same size. News bars are next section, and then our RenWeb login is the next section. And so every website is divided into sections. Think about the picture, the hand-drawn pictures you sent me 2 weeks ago. Every single one of those, you guys drew circles and boxes on them because you said this is going to be this part of the website. Now, this week, what I want you to do for your group assignment is I want you to actually take those boxes and begin to define them in CSS. So in addition to doing this tutorial, you also need to begin to define your style sheet with your group. Or if you don't have a group, just start to make your style sheet. I think every person needs to give me 2 of the styles, 2 of the boxes. So let me teach you how to do that. Remember to keep following along with this. So right now, line 5 is the important line. Line 5 says, look at the style sheet for your style. So let's click over to the style sheet, and you will find there's nothing there. Nothing at all. And so to save us some time, I have pre-saved some styles already from another project I'm working on. So here we go. Here are a bunch of styles. I'm just going to stick with HTML to begin with. So our first style is HTML. HTML means that anything that is linked to this page that is HTML will have this background picture, and the background size will cover the entire website. So every page that has HTML, anything that's HTML, which is everything, will have the same background picture. So right now, if I go to my index and I replay it, it should put that LCA background picture there. It was a picture of LCA. I'm going to do away with the console real quick. So everything will have that. So now let me show you why this is cool. I'm going to add a file. I'm going to call it page2.html. Go ahead and follow along with me. If you need to stop me or pause me or rewind me, do that. I'm going to copy the head, so lines 3 through 6. Copy that over. I'll wait a little bit. Going to paste it here. And I'm going to add a HTML tag. and I'm going to add a not end HTML tag. Now, and then I'm going to do one more thing. Go ahead and do this with me. I need to create an anchor tag so I can click over to page 2. So page 2, this is from the last lesson. Hopefully you remember how to do that. I'm going to say click here for page 2 and then end the anchor tag. Okay, so now when I run it, it says click here for page 2. When I go to page 2, there's the same picture. I'm going to add a third file just to drive my point home. Page 3 HTML. Once again, I'm just going to copy and paste all this stuff over. Bam. And then when and then I'm going to create another link here to page 3. Just creating all kinds of links. That's so we can access it. But instead of page 2, I'm going to say page 3. So make sure you change that to page 3 there. So now we should have 2 links. I'm going to line break them just to make life easier on me. Add a line break, which breaks it down to the next line. Now when I run it, this is my index page. I have page 2 there, page 3, and there we go, same picture. So CSS is a way of defining a section of your website so that the sections stay the same. As I said, what's in them might change, but how they look will stay the same. I could easily borrow one of Coach Porter's tracksuits, and I could put that on. It probably wouldn't fit me too well. I'm like a foot shorter than that guy. But that's the idea, is that it allows all of your different pages to wear the same clothes without having to change, without having to code that in each individual page. So let me do 2 more sections to show you what I mean. So we have our HTML, we have a background picture, and then we want it to cover, notice how it covers the whole page no matter what. So that's one section. I'm going to create another section. I'm going to call this Kevin. So you can name the sections after yourself. It doesn't matter what they're named, only that they stay the same from page to page to page. And I'm going to open it up right there. And I'm going to borrow some of my code from down. I'm going to borrow some of my code from the other page. I kind of knew this was going to happen. So let me go over here and let me grab the H1 stuff here, and I'll talk you through what these mean. Sorry about that. So I'm going to grab my H1. So my font color is going to be blue. My left margin is going to be 20 pixels from the left, and my font size is going to be 45 pixels. So I just said anything named after myself, anything named Kevin on any of my pages is going to be teal colored, aqua colored. It's going to be positioned 20 pixels from the left margin, and the font is going to be 45 pixels high. So now I'm going to go into my index, and I'm still in my body, and I'm going to go down. I'm going to say start Kevin, and Kevin's going to say hello world. We'll just stick with that, and then I'm going to end Kevin. Oh, by the way, if it's capitalized in CSS, it better be capitalized in HTML, and I'm going to run that. And see, it positioned at 45 pixels from page 3. That's 45 pixels right there. I'm going to add a break so that you could see that a little bit better. Bam. So, yep, it's positioned 45 pixels from the edge of the page. And it's teal, and it says hello world, and the font is that size. So now on page 2, I am going to create a body. And in that, I'm going to put a Kevin division. And this time I'm going to say, welcome to page 2. And then I'm going to end Kevin. And I'm going to copy and paste that over on page 3 as well, so that it's on all the pages. So I could have 200 pages, and anything named Kevin is going to be teal font, 45 pixels high. This is going to say page 3. And just for fun, if you're following along at home, I'm going to create an anchor tag to get me back to my index page. So, and I'm going to say, click here to go home. Bam. So now, when I run this, it will always run the home page first. It says, click here to go to page 2. That's actually page 3. I could fix that right there. There we go. Click here to go to page 3. Page 3 says, welcome to page 3. 45 pixels from the left. Teal font. Click here to go back home. Click here to go to page 2. Welcome to page 2. 45 pixels from the left. Teal font. Isn't that cool? Now, whatever's named Kevin will be named that on all my slides. So now let me teach you guys how to do a box. I'm going to name this box 1. I'm going to name something box 1. Notice you need these brackets because that tells the computer program where that style begins and ends. So don't forget these brackets. Also, don't forget semicolons. They're the most annoying thing in computer programming. If you forget them, it will hate you. So if you guys are getting errors or you can't get something to appear, it's almost always because you forgot a semicolon. So go back through and make sure you have semicolons everywhere. You do not need them after the title. You do need them in the individuals. So, okay, so now let's create a color-coded box. Let's do that. Once again, I'm going to copy it from here. And I'm going to copy the header box that I had here. So, yep, so that's good. And I'm just going to copy and paste that over here, and I'll go line by line. Opacity is how visible the box is, so you can make things more transparent and less transparent. Position means that it will always appear in the same place no matter what. So if I say absolute position, it means it will not move, nothing will move it, it will be immovable. So that means if people resize their screens, it will still stay in the same spot. Now I'm using a percentage, and I'm saying put this 2% from the top of the page. That's different than pixels. 2% means that if I have a massive TV, it will only be 2% at the top, and if I have a tiny little phone, it will still be 2% away from the top. But then I said, put it 100 pixels from the left, so 100 pixels is your left margin, which means it should be somewhere around there when we run it. Give it a navy background color, put the text in the center, and pad the text 10. Let me talk about the difference between a padding and a top and left position. Padding is how far away from the box the text should appear. And so margin is how far away from the edge of the page the text should appear. Padding is in its own box 10 pixels away. So now I'm going to go back up to my index page, now that I have box 1, and I'm actually going to put my box tags on either side of my Kevin tags. This will help you guys see how this works. So there we go, box 1, bam. Now I'm on my index page. When I run it, it should draw me a nice little box around Hello World. Do you guys see that? So, and notice, even though I have a break right there, it doesn't break because the position is absolute. So note that, too. The position is absolute, and it's absolutely 2% down the page and 100 pixels away from the edge of the page, which is almost exactly where I said it was going to be. So now I've created a box attribute. I can add it to page 2 as well. I'm going to add it in the same place. I don't know why I keep doing parentheses. Box 1 and end box 1. And now, welcome to page 2 will be in its nice little box. That is when I click over to page 2. It'll be in its nice little box too. Once again, I can have 100 pages and I can have these. I'm going to click back over here before I sign off. We're going to do some stuff with subclasses and pick up some more things later. But I just want to go back over this. This one is a font 1. I've said I want the text color to be aqua. I can, by the way, change it to red. I can change it to red too, and they're nice and show you the box there. So now when I run it, that'll be red. And the margin left positions it from the left of the page. The font size is self-explanatory. Right here, this one creates a box. You can name it whatever, but it will color in your box because we've given our box a background color, and our background color is navy. This one is 100 pixels away from the left of the page. The padding is another 10 or so pixels, and yet here our margin is 20. So there's some competing things there us to figure out. It centers the text and gives us a 10 pixel padding. And so that is how you can create some boxes. Once again, send me this. How you do that, in case some of you have forgotten, is you just click share, and then you share the link right here. Don't give me the embed, share the link, and email that to me. That's your participation points. Your group assignment this week is to create 2 of these right here. Create 2 of those for your web page. Every single individual in your group needs to create 2. Your group does not have to create 2. If there's 1 person in your group, then your group has to do 2. If there's 3 people, you have to do 6, and each person has to individually send me the 2. So, so work with your group if it's still intact and figure out which 2 boxes you're going to program in code. That's your group assignment. Your individual assignment I'll email you about, but it's basically to take a page like LCA and list out what you think the divisions are. So look at this web page and say, okay, we have a top bar here, and tell me top bar. And then we have a menu pane, tell me menu pane. We have a intro video, tell me intro video. So that's going to be your individual assignment. Shouldn't be too hard, shouldn't take you long. I want to show you one other resource before I let you go, and that's w3schools.com. If you don't know how to do something, you can ask me for help and I can help you figure it out, or you can go to W3 Schools and click Learn CSS, and they will help you figure out borders, margins, padding, backgrounds, colors. It's all right here. CSS outline, CSS how to do text fonts, how to make icons. So go here. Your final project will have to have a bunch of this stuff, especially if it's going to look good. So go here for your final project, and this will teach you how to do more than I have time to teach you. So hopefully you learned something in that. Hopefully the assignments are clear for the week. I look forward to looking at your web pages. You remember your final project for this class is a completed group business website with all of this stuff in it. So now you are working towards it, so which is cool. I'm signing off now. Have a good week.